Assalamu alaikum, beautiful. Welcome to Spiritual Awakening, Enlighten Your Soul Podcast. I am your host, Nazish. I found my inner light through self healing. I learned that every Muslim woman who is the light of her life have gone through different trials to get where she is today. So subscribe as we uncover hidden stories and learn from life experiences. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to Spiritual Awakening podcast. Today I have with me Sister Khansa. Assalamu alaikum sister.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. How have you been?
Alhamdulillah, I have been good too. Really honored to be on your podcast today.
No, the pleasure is all mine. I have fell in love with your book and I
Thank
just
you.
can't wait to get hands on for my daughter, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah.
So, for our viewers and listeners, let me quickly introduce Sister Khansa. Sister Khansa is an empowerment coach who specializes in helping Muslim women uncover their purpose and grow into the best version of themselves, all while fostering a deep connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She's passionate about guiding women to think about the lasting impact they want to make within the Ummah and align their values with that vision. In addition to her coaching work, Sister Kansa is a dedicated researcher and an expert in internet addiction, social media addiction, and excessive internet use, something we needed. She's also the author of Ali's Dream, a screen time lesson, a children's book designed to help families navigate the challenges of screen time, encouraging stronger family connections around a topic that usually leads to disconnect. I love that. Welcome
Alhamdulillah.
again to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And again, Jazakallah khair for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. I love the fact in that you are a social media, like I would definitely would love to cover around that because I feel like today's generation is having such a hard time with all this
Yeah.
dopamine that it's so hard to regulate their emotions. It's so hard to navigate around that. It's so hard to even keep the phone aside and focus on their work.
Yes.
Like, so many
Yeah.
of the teenage are now going through procrastination, all these things which I feel like before was never an issue, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so for me, I think so I'm one of those last generations to have, lived through that childhood before screen time took over our lives.
Yeah.
We did have computers and PCs, but it was that time where we had like those car racing games or, just a few games here and there, which I would play with my brother and bond through it. So my real entry into social media is basically when I was in 11th grade. So I think that's when Facebook came into being. And then from there, we moved into Instagram, and I was there from the very beginning. And it was obviously a new space. I was navigating through it. And basically, what happened was I kind of started blogging. And I was blogging for a good amount of time. And blogging wasn't a common thing here in Qatar at that time. So this I'm speaking about around 2013, 2014. It was common in like getting common in other places, but in Qatar, nobody was doing it. And so for me, that was my entry into the digital media scene. And obviously, I was a niqabi then as well. And, I was trying to find people who I could connect with or who shared my values and things like that, because not many people were there at that time doing these, holding on to their values. And so for me, that was always something that guided whatever journey I was on social media. I spent a good 10 years in social media. So I lived the kind of like the influencer life. I collaborated with a lot of brands, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines, all of these like top brands. And I have, attended fashion events, food events, all kinds of things. So I was inside, immersed in that world for 10 years, 10 years of my life. So I've seen a lot of people change, evolve, like their starting point, how their journey kind of shaped them and all of that. I've seen so much of it. And, um, the one thing about social media is people are constantly talking about the dunya. It's like dunya, like, you need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. And I was kind of doing that as well, right? So I was in the influencer marketing kind of field. Um, and I was doing that as well. So I was also talking about the same thing, like this is the latest shoe or the bag or all of that. And I felt that all of that kind of was numbing my soul. And, I was feeling empty inside. I did not like who I was becoming. And I had reached a point where I was like, I think I am done with this. Like, this is it for me. And around the time I was making that decision is end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So when COVID is coming up. So I was like, what should I do now? Like, I have a background in computer engineering, but I didn't work in computer engineering. I mostly worked in social media. And I was like, where do I go from here? I need to study something. I need to do something. And I applied to university again to do my master's. And that's when COVID hit. So, obviously social media and everything took a step back. And I guess from there, I came into research and I ended up researching on the topic of social media, and internet addiction. I met a professor who was working in this area. And so for me, it was like the perfect place to be because I had lived through it. I had seen it. Like I had seen so much of it. It was in, every part of me, around me, like, and I just felt like, Allah was the one who took me on that complete journey, like to put me in that place where, probably one of the things that I could help people with is navigating how to go about this, this unknown and always like growing kind of technology. So how to like, balance that with normal lives and, with our religion, with our values, with our etiquettes and all of that. And I just feel like, if I planned my life, it wouldn't have been this way. It is Allah who has taken me from there to here to finally even writing that children's book, because truly, like, if it wasn't for that journey, I don't think that book would have been here either. So alhamdulillah. So that is kind of my whole story with social media.
Wow, mashallah. I love your backstory, and I never would have thought that you actually were in the influencer world. And it's so surprising to hear that, because I think you're the first influencer on the podcast. And I am so curious to know, because you mentioned that you could feel that you will be getting empty from inside.
Yeah.
So can we explore that bit a little? How, like, when did you realize that, and how did that breakthrough happen?
I think I was, like, when you are in your early 20s, or let's say when you are in high school, your university days, you are excited to explore, experience all of these things because you think, oh, this is the thing that you really want, or this is the thing that you really want to experience, And I kind of was getting all of that experiences. Yes, I learned a lot. Some of them were really like enjoyable and all of that, but it wasn't allowing me to grow. I just felt like I never belonged in those circles. I could not connect. I had to become someone else, and I hated that, And I think I was miserable. I tried to like connect with various circles, various people, but I would just never feel like, I could connect with anyone because I think my core was always like, my values, the ones that are grounded in Islam, and nothing about that space is rooted in Islam, nothing about that space. And I guess, like we are all blinded by material, but when you have seen like the top and, like the top chefs, the top fashion designers, models, all of these people, and you're just like, I just don't want to be that person, like I just don't want to go down that path. I don't connect with any of these people. I don't see myself in this, you know. And this was kind of where I was like, I need change. And I don't know where I should go for that. But I think like, career change was one thing I was like definitely looking at. And the best way to go about that was studying something, restarting with a new kind of knowledge to start with. And I guess COVID just helped that, because then, the going out and the meeting people and everything kind of like subsided at that point. And so that kind of opened it up for me. So I think like seeing all these people on the top and the kind of environment, and, it's definitely not the most positive spaces. So I guess that was kind of like slowly chipping away at like my, my soul and who I was inside. And I think like I just had to like, you know, make a move out of there. And I think one of my biggest lows in my life came during COVID. And that was just everything I needed to, make a strong decision that this is it for me. I don't think I'm going back there again. And obviously, when I had that account around at like, close to COVID, I was having about 70,000 followers or so. And kind of like completely drew back from that. And you can see like all of the accounts that I'm working on now, I started them from scratch because I was like, I no longer identify with that person.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people I met through that journey. So the account is there, but I don't identify there. I don't create content there. I have these new spaces where, that's the current me. That's who I am now.
MashaAllah, Allahumma barik. What a journey. Ever since you had that awakening,
Yeah.
you realized that you wanted to, this is not who you are, this is not Khansa, is I want to be somebody else.
Yeah.
What were the steps that you took in order to put yourself in that direction of achieving your higher self?
So I mentioned, right, like I had my lowest low during COVID. It was basically, I ended up in hospital with something that was not COVID. And that time I had all of my family around, but nobody could be with me in hospital. So, that sheer loneliness, and you only have Allah, and you don't know what's going on. The doctors don't know what's going on. You don't have answers. And so I had this big fear show up. It's like, what if this is the end of my life? What if this particular journey is leading me to the end of my life? I do not have anything that I can say I've done. I mean, if this was the end of my life, this just cannot be it. And during the time in hospital, one of my schoolmates from many years back, she shows up. She was a doctor working there in the hospital. So she would come every day just to check on me, because what I was going through was something unknown. Like the doctors couldn't say what it was. Every day they had different answers. Every day they would tell me different things. And I was just like, okay, the doctors don't know what's going on. Nobody knows, like, so I just didn't know what my life was going to be from that point. And I was like, yeah, Allah, whatever it is, I just have to like do something more with my life. I am not appreciative of how I've lived my life without doing things, like I want to do something more. And I would just pray. And I went through that whole process, and alhamdulillah, whatever it was, it kind of like went away. Let's just say subsided on its own. I still struggle with the, whatever that problem was. Like 4 years to now, I still go back to hospital to investigate what it is. We still don't know what it is because it's something rare. That's what the doctors have said. But the turning point, like, yes, this was my journey. But remember, I mentioned the doctor. She was my schoolmate. And she would come and tell me, Khansa, you'll be all right. You'll be okay. You'll go back to your normal life. But 1 year later, this friend, she passes away. And that reminder of death is something I hold on to like every like every single day almost, that my friend passing away all of a sudden, like it was role reversal. I was worrying about my death and she was calming me. And all of a sudden, like, she had just delivered about 2 weeks before that with her first child. And she was perfectly fine. She went home. She spent, I guess, around 10 days with the baby. And then she just went into coma. A week later, she was gone. And for me, that changed everything for me. I was like, I will never take a moment for granted ever again. I mean, yes, I do slip off, but this is something that always keeps bringing me back to, I have to do something. I have to work on it. I don't know if I have any more time.
Yeah. And I think going through something like this kind of shakes us, right?
Yeah,
That really transforms us, and we really feel like we don't want to take this life anymore for granted.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So,
So now that we have covered your lows,
yeah.
since we are on the Spiritual Awakening podcast, I
Yeah.
also want to know, how did you get the idea that this is your purpose, writing is your purpose, or how did you come up with the idea of writing a book for children?
It wasn't easy, to be honest. What is my purpose? What is it that I can do? There's nobody who can come and tell you this is what you can do, right? It's you who have to figure it out. But I think I always was asking Allah like to guide me, and I was always taking action. I would be like, okay, maybe this is what I have to do. I would go and try that. And then if I feel like I didn't belong there, I would be like, okay, this is not it. Let's just do something else. So I was always on that quest, and I had many coaches, many teachers. I attended many classes specifically from the spiritual perspective. Just because I had a lot of knowledge, I did have Islamic knowledge, alhamdulillah, like, I grew up in a religious home and all of that. But for me, it was still that connection with Allah. Like, I was not connecting. So for me, these few things, like, understanding my strengths and weaknesses, and then seeing Allah in my strength, seeing Allah in my weakness, I think these things kind of really help me move in that direction. So I have heard a couple of people saying I'm good at speaking, good at writing, and good at a few other things. And then for me, it was just about, okay, so what knowledge do I have a lot of that I can actually give back? And how can I put the skills I have to use? So it was basically Allah taking me through the journey. Like, I can tell you, like, if it was up to me, it wouldn't have happened this way. And I guess, like, when I received my book in my hand, I was so grateful. I was grateful for everything I had gone through my life, like every person I had met in my life, and whether it was a good incident or a bad incident, I was like, if I hadn't gone through all of that, this book wouldn't have been there. And so for me, I think, like, connecting with Allah, shukr, and always like trying and trying. And, things are hard. It's not easy. It's not going to come to you in a silver plate. You have to keep trying. Like, there's always barriers, financial or, societal, all of that. And it was always like, I'll not give up because I know I have Allah. I will not give up. Allah will show me the way. So it was always like trying to look at, negative situations with Allah over it. So I'm like, it will work. It will work. Maybe this is not the time, but it will work. And I think that kind of really helped me through my journey.
MashaAllah. I love that about you, because oftentimes we tend to lose tawakkul, right? We often, when the life catches upon us and we go through a lot of dips, I think that's a time when we tend to lose our tawakkul the most, when we're
Yeah.
not able to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
And those are the times when it's the most important to actually put our tawakkul, put our trust in Allah
Yeah.
subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the times when we really need to see that there is something positive coming out of this.
Yes.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
Yes.
And I can connect that so much with your story, because I myself, if I would have, if my life would have gone by the way I have planned, I wouldn't have been here today. So coaching for me, and it just came to me at the right time with so much ease. It was something like I did not choose. It was automatically like Allah chose it for me and just gave it to me in my hand. Like I just remember
Yeah.
doing istikara and boom, the next day I'm in the coaching group.
Yeah.
So definitely Allah plans and we plan and Allah's plans are better than us. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
And what led you to the idea of doing it for children specifically?
Actually, I have um I have done a couple of published a couple of research in some of the top scientific journals. That was a challenge on its own, learning how to write a paper and write a good paper and
Mm.
learn how to scientifically argue and convince the readers that no, this is a point and all of that. It was a learning journey. But what I found was that the research that I publish, it's basically in a language that is kind of not understandable to the normal people if they are not within the industry. And I was researching topics on adolescent internet addiction, social media use, and all of these tactics or techniques in which we can improve, like the education system, the home, what needs to be done within homes, within families, within schools, and all of this. But I just felt like it was just staying within my paper. Yes, other researchers were using it as a base, but for me, I wasn't seeing that difference in people around me. I knew about this, but how could I best give that message to people around me? And I felt I also had this vision of writing a children's book, but I didn't know then that the children's book that I would write would be on screen time. And I will tell you this, that it was Allah who must have put that idea in my heart, and that's how it became a children's book. Yes, a full
Like,
circle, but
yeah.
but the thing is, I think like the children's book is such a brilliant way to bring these conversations in home, because it's not only the children who need this understanding, it's the parents who are dealing with these children who struggle with excessive screen time themselves. So how to best start this conversation other than like a really well illustrated and beautiful storybook, and it's written in poetry style, so it's not like easy read. So there has to be that conversation, like the parent can read and discuss each page and the scenario with the children. So it is designed to start that conversation in home. So inshallah, it brings benefit to a lot of people, inshallah.
Inshallah, it definitely will because you have to practice before you preach, right? So I think somewhere it's going to be a beautiful reminder for the parents every single time they hold on to the book that I need to work on this. And it's
Yeah.
definitely from the parents that the kids will learn, right? No matter
Yeah.
how much words you speak, action speaks louder than words.
Yes, exactly.
It just reminded me that two or 3 days before, so I had not been I had not been posting consistently because of my
Yeah.
health. So one day I just sat and I was like, I'm gonna just batch create content, and so I was constantly on my phone. And my daughter comes and she's like, "You're always on the phone, mama." And that itself was a reminder for me, okay, I need to keep this on the side right now. This is not the time, probably attend her. And I feel like this book itself, like the storybook, because my daughter loves reading storybooks. Every night we have a bedtime routine and she'll pick up a book and then we'll read it.
Yeah.
I think bringing this up in a routine where
Yeah.
kids are already so much familiar, and then it's
Yeah.
just a new element that goes in, which makes it so
Yeah.
easy for them to understand and grasp. And probably they are going to question their parents as well.
Yes.
But I think I'm really excited to see the reviews and what people have to say after, reading the book and after implementing it.
Inshallah.
Can you tell us where the viewers can find the book?
Right now, it is available in the on Little Hibba, which is my publisher. So this is basically for the UK Europe market. It's more accessible there, and then it's also available in Singapore at Warda Books. inshallah, it is rolling out to different places. So, I will be announcing those places on my Instagram account as they roll out, inshallah. But I am hoping that it reaches every place and it is a book that becomes accessible to everyone. And I'm sure, relying on Allah, I think it's going to be possible. So, inshallah, just keep tuned on my page.
Inshallah. Now, I wanted to ask you, is that what one advice or tip you would like to give to the listener who, just like you, probably feels lost in her purpose? She's in a field, in a career, but she's not sure whether she wants to stick to it. And the kind of people tend to feel like they're on a timeline and they
Yeah.
don't want to risk. And mashallah, I love that about you, that you were open to trying different things, to exploring till you find out who you are and what's your purpose. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to that woman who's really struggling and who feels like she's time bounded to find her purpose, and if she doesn't, she's done, she needs to stick to where she is?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I would say is, know yourself, because whatever you are thinking in terms of, whether you belong there, whether you want to do this, like, know it best. And once you kind of know, that is not where you belong, then you have to work on finding yourself. And the thing is, life is designed in such a way that at that point, you have to be at that place. Allah designs your life in such a way that, it's not going to be easy. But if you go through these highs and lows and highs and lows, that's when you actually find yourself. So there is no timeline that society says. It's always Allah's timeline, and that is the best timeline for you. The other thing that I would say is take the time to build a deep relationship with Allah. And what does that mean? Knowing Allah, like trying to understand His names, His attributes, spending time with the Quran, and seeing every situation in your life, knowing that Allah has your back. Allah is always with you, right? So even when you're super low and you're struggling, Allah is there with you. All you have to do is ask Him, call out to Him, and, truly put your. So I would say, like, look at it like you would look at it your best friend. So you would, call them up when they're low. You would call them up when there's something happy. So kind of start building that relationship with Allah. So, whenever something is going wrong in your life and, you have nowhere to go, just, you have Allah. You can always go to Him. And for me, like, I think that is one of those things that has helped me the most. Every time I feel low or every time I feel disturbed, I kind of write down my thoughts, and then I ask myself, where do I see Allah in this situation? I know I'm disturbed because I am not seeing Allah in the situation. And so I have that conversation with myself. And then I'm like, okay, how do I translate this into a dua? Or, what adhkar is there? What ibadah is there that can help me overcome anxiety? Or I want more peace in my life. So what can I do? And we have all of those tools in the deen. And I feel like, every time I'm in a situation, I kind of try to find those tools, those techniques, those things that, is so accessible in our deen and very easy to implement. It's not hard. You don't need, a connection here, a connection there. No, you just need Allah, and you just have to go to Him, and He will always open doors. He will always put the right people in front of you, and He will remove the people who don't belong in your life. So just, like, take the time to build that relationship with Allah. It will make so much difference. And then the third thing I would say is gratitude. Like, practice gratitude in every situation. Whether you're having a hardship, be grateful. Whether you're having a good time, be grateful. Like, every time I hear something happy, my first thing is Alhamdulillah. Like, Alhamdulillah that this has been given to me. Every time, like, I have a hardship, I'm like, Alhamdulillah, it didn't go worse than this, and the thing is, like, just seeing everything with that mindset of Alhamdulillah, I kind of now live a life where if someone tells me anything, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, Alhamdulillah. If some rough situation comes in front of me, I'm like, no, Allah has put me in this situation because I need to learn something. I need to uh, maybe change something about myself. So alhamdulillah, it's a learning opportunity, it's a growth opportunity. So every moment in your life is a moment for alhamdulillah. And I think like life in dunya will not be as hard anymore, because what do you need when you have Allah? And what do you need when you are thankful for everything that you have? Absolutely nothing. This is my advice on like how to move forward with life.
I love that advice. I really love it, especially the bit where you said, write it down, write the situation down, and ask, where in this is Allah? Because you're probably
Yeah.
at your worst because you cannot see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that.
Yeah.
I love that. That was something that resonated with me so much because I tend to sit with my journal too when I think that this is it, I can't process it anymore. I write it
Yeah.
down and it really helps. So Jazakallah for all the advice and tips that you shared. I really love them. And gratitude, practicing gratitude can be a game changer. The mindset shift that comes with it
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Yes.
something that we cannot imagine. It will gradually come to place, but when it does, it's the most beautiful place to be in.
Yes. Alhamdulillah. Yes.
Alhamdulillah. So my next question is very much related to the answers you gave, but what I
Yeah.
really want to ask is, what spiritual practice did you do when you were in the lows? So you mentioned about struggling with your health and being hospitalized, and then there was a part where you were not able to find your purpose and you felt very disconnected and your soul felt very empty.
Yeah.
What was the one thing, or it could be two or three things that you did spiritually that kind of helped you to hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
I think my relationship with dua. So learning how to make dua, learning what dua meant. Like dua is so easy. It's such an easy act of worship, but it has the power to change your destiny.
Mm.
That is like the most powerful tool that you can have. And you can make dua in every situation. You don't need it. You don't need to ask anyone. You don't need to go anywhere. You can just make dua where you are. And I think that is so easy to implement. And I would say just start there. For me, that has been the biggest help. Every time I'm in a situation, I'm like, dua, immediately dua. If I'm in a happy situation, immediately dua. If I want to do something big, dua. Everything is dua for me. And I don't think like, you know, like tawakkul, shukr, everything comes when you have that connection with dua. It is so transformative. It is so yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you mentioned it because everything is pre-written, but with dua,
Yes.
it can be rewritten.
Yeah.
And I think I was in school or something when I read this quote. And I was so surprised because we knew that, Qadr of Allah, it's written. And like
Yeah.
Quran says that, and everyone around us tells us that everything is pre-written. So
Yes.
as a school child, I used to always have this question, what's the point of praying and asking dua?
Yeah.
And I was very curious about that until I found out that, okay, with dua, it can be rewritten.
Yeah.
Allah has given you that ability to raise your hand,
Yes.
make dua, and change your destiny. And Alhamdulillah for that, right?
Yes. Alhamdulillah. Truly, alhamdulillah for that.
And the amount of ease comes to you just by making the dua, right?
Yeah.
I was reading this book, The Power of Dua by Sister Alia. It's so well written. It's an amazing book. And every time now I have discussions about dua, something or the other comes up in my mind. But one thing that I saw from almost all her stories was that
Yeah.
the minute they made dua, they would write something like that. Uh, I felt ease, or I was so much at peace. I was crying miserably, but the minute I made dua, I felt so much like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it. Like
Yes.
peace that comes with it.
Yes.
And sometimes it's exactly what you want. You just want that to pour your heart out.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then it's just like the next minute you are like a whole different person.
Yes, you feel so much peace, and you're also like content with your situation, because you're like, once you have made dua, it is like, Allah, whatever comes my way, I know you will take care of me. Because till that point, you are trying to take care of yourself. You're trying to, find a solution. And when you are broken, when your mind is not working well, you will not be making the best decision. But as soon as you have submitted to Allah, you're just like, I know Allah will like take care of me in the best possible way. And you get that peace, and you will not get that from anywhere else except from Allah. And Alhamdulillah for that. Alhamdulillah we have that. And Alhamdulillah we got the opportunity to know Allah. So truly, yeah.
Alhamdulillah for that. Jazakallahu khairan, Sister Khansa. I truly enjoyed this conversation. And I have to say that you are very courageous in terms of, I love the way how you came to a full circle. I just loved it. How everything you did in your life kind of connected you to your purpose in such a beautiful way. Like, who would have thought that when you were doing the research, you would actually end up using that research in terms of writing a book for children? And, it's going to be so much beneficial for the Ummah, inshallah. I really pray that Allah puts a lot of barakah in your work. And may you write so many books for us, for our children, inshallah. And it creates a huge impact in the lives of women. Jazakallahu khairan for being here today.
Yaki, thank you, Nazis, for having me. Thank you for creating this beautiful space. And I am really humbled and honored and grateful to have had this conversation with you. And yeah, inshallah, we'll see you soon.
The pleasure is all mine. Trust me. I really enjoyed this conversation. And so many beautiful insights. I'm sure the listeners are going to also be able to relate to this, and they're going to have some amazing takeaways. I definitely did. So jazakallah for that.
Yaki.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.